Thank God that the animal tests were first in ferrets, right? But what about long-term effects? That's the interesting part. In previous animal studies, so what you need to know is that what the RNA virus has been around for a long time. We have COVID type coronaviruses already for 30 years during the flu season. And what they notice over and over, increased cancer rates, increased mutant genes, and also autoimmune reaction, hyperimmunity. This is typical for RNA type of vaccines. So the last 30 years, they've not been able to create a coronavirus vaccine. I'm not talking about COVID-19, but we've been exposed to corona for over 30 years. That's the reason why we have so many false positives, because the test that they're doing to see if you have COVID-19 is not testing COVID-19, it's tested if you've been exposed to a coronavirus, if you have little parts of coronavirus in you. So a lot of the tests don't show anything at all, and they're not even, let's say, scientific, because the person who developed this test said you cannot even use it to determine if there's an infection going on or not. So the reason they have not been able to develop a vaccine was that there was always a hyperreaction going on. And the same thing happened now with the ferrets that they were testing at Moderna. Lung inflammation, liver function problems. But there's more you need to know. The vaccine will be administered with microneedling. That should be a good thing because it's very small, no more painful injections, and you just put the plaster on your skin and voila, it is done. Couldn't be easier, right? Now, there are three special ingredients that you need to know. Normally, vaccines can have up to 80 ingredients at least or more. God knows what they put in those vaccines. But in this vaccine, they have modified RNA, which is partially from the virus, a hydrogel, and an enzyme. So let's look at these ingredients that Moderna has. And I'm going to tell you that the other companies all will have similar type of things as well. So let's look at the RNA that is in there. Your body's DNA will decode the RNA and make more virus parts. That sounds a little crazy, but that's what happens. And then the body will react to these viruses and start to kill it. And then we should have a so-called immunity against the COVID-19. So far, it sounds really good, right? So let's go deeper into that. The way to do that is a method called transfection. And transfection is how you make GMO. Now you can see the link to GMO. What happened to GMO, as you know, we spoke about it, if food became toxic. There were lawsuits, they paid millions and millions, and there's no research on long-term effects of this RNA. So Moderna emphatically states that their RNA vaccine will not genetically modify humans and will not alter our genome. Wow. Where do we have heard safety before, right? So the question is, why would humans not be affected? Because the transfection can have a temporary effect or a permanent change of your genome. Just think about that. They have no way to determine if it's going to be temporary or it's going to stay. And there's more to this story. We will not know for the next 5 to 10 years. Remember that normally testing of a vaccine goes up to 12 years. That's what is required. And yet, still it goes wrong. And yet, there's so much damage done by vaccines who've been studied. And we can go on vaccines and do a whole workshop on vaccines, and we can speak for 2-3 days. We will not know until it's too late. And remember, almost 60% of the people are waiting for vaccination. So what's going to happen? So it's another part of the puzzle that you absolutely need to know about is that synthetic RNA, that's what they're using, can be patented. Actually, the coronavirus is patented, what most people do not know. So now, if you get vaccinated, you will have a piece of patented RNA in your body, in your genome. So the question is, do they own you or not? We have no idea. If we looked at Monsanto and saw what happened, they were owning the seeds and everything that came out of these seeds and would sue farmers that were accidentally get the seeds. And so this is exactly what happened in Monsanto. A lot of farmers got into trouble. And these farmers were getting into lawsuit with Monsanto because of the wind and stuff and the pollen and the seeds and all the kind of stuff. But also the other side was that there were a lot of lawsuits filed against the Roundup, the pesticides, which cause cancer. And Monsanto paid over 300 million in one lawsuit. They lost billions. Karma is a boomerang. Let's go to ingredient number 2. There's an enzyme called luciferase, which is an interesting name. Lucifer, some people are talking about satanic cults. I don't know. They like to play with words and symbolism. But what is this exactly? Luciferase is an enzyme that will create an effect of illumination. It will, what we call luminescent effect. And it's interesting what we're going to do with it. As you know, Lucifer, that's also the name that they use there for matches. So in some languages, Lucifer is a match, so you can light fire with it. In nature, we have bioluminescence. For example, I live here in the mountains in North Carolina. We have fireflies, and that's a form of luminescence as well. When we go into the ocean, deep in the ocean, where there's no light, there are fishes and other kinds of, you can see this, that can produce also light. So in nature, it is normal. It can be done. But why do we need that? Well, it's a digital code. It's like a barcode, an ID number. You know, Bill Gates spoke about this. This way they can scan if you're vaccinated. So what they want is to be able to quickly scan you if you are vaccinated or not. This will be great for the airports when you're going to fly. The airlines are going to be use it because they can be fined if people come with a vaccination. They're going to make the people who are not vaccinated lives miserable unless we take action. So you become the product. Now you see two things happening. On one side, we have the RNA that they own by patent, and they can control now to see if you have that RNA in you, so-called because now you are proven to have been vaccinated. But in reality, it's also proof of product. So you are now like a product, and you're containing patented information. Then we have the third ingredient, and you will love this one. It's a hydrogel developed by a company, very advanced science company, DARPA. So what is DARPA? DARPA is a Defense Advanced Research Project Agency. They work on military projects. They work on warfare. Interesting, right? They've developed, like you see, a kind of a bomb that can fly 5 times the speed of sound and can destroy a whole city. They have been very active with unmanned vehicles that can kill terrorists from far away. They have been developing big robots. What things that you see in the movies, actually, they're doing that. DARPA is very advanced technology, very advanced science. You can almost say like, I want to say like science fiction, but they are science and they're not fiction. And they're also working on nanotechnology. And this is going to blow your mind. So these are little robots. If you look at these pictures, they're not much bigger. They're smaller than red blood cells. They actually this can be the size of a virus. Now, robot the size of a virus is already available in our time. This is super advanced stuff. This is like sci-fi movies. These are microscopic little robots, and they're made of nanotechnology. And now comes the kicker. They can assemble and disassemble. What does it mean? It's like a digital printer. You can use them to make anything that you want. You can make, like you see in the right, like little robots out of them by assembling them together. You can create new tech inside of your body, which is quite interesting. I mean, if it was not evil, this would be so cool, right? So now the next step is they can hack your phone and connect to the net. They can connect and send information from you inside to, what do you guess? Artificial intelligence. So the question is, what about privacy? What about the freedom? Now, what kind of information, you ask? Well, we have medical information, blood sugar, oxygen saturation, hormones. They can even measure emotions, drugs that you're using, prescription drugs, other types of drugs, if you smoke or not smoke, medication, nutrient, stress level. Some of it would be very, very good. You know, if you know that we're having lacking vitamins, that would be good, right? Or if we know we're stressed, might be good. But what are they going to use this for? And will they ask permission to use it for what? And there's more. The nanorobots can also receive information. So I said they could assemble and disassemble. So now they can receive information from the outside, and then they can do things that we don't even know about yet. But also they can influence us. So for example, they can influence our mood, our thoughts, our behavior, our memories, or hormones in our system, or emotions. They can even technically create hallucinations. Are they going to do it or not? But this is very advanced stuff. They can do it. And the fact that they can do it, for me, is not a good sign. And of course, in the media, they're going to spin it, and they're going to tell you it's all good for us, and we're going to save the planet, all of that. So the question is, do you trust the media? I think there's one thing that became very clear for me during the COVID-19 is that the media is part of a bigger thing, call it conspiracy, but they're part of the game. The media is being used for propaganda. Let's look now at the two front players, all right? So, as we said before, Melinda and Bill Gates Foundation and DARPA, these are the big guys here. DARPA is also working on a brain chip. They want to make the perfect soldier, reacts fast, and so on and so on. Now, why would such a benevolent man as Bill Gates from the Bill and Melinda Foundation want to work with a military organization? That was a big question. Now, we know Bill Gates, he's the best guy on this planet. He invests in Monsanto, he's invested in vaccines, and so on and so on. But his father, most people know this already was, a fan of population control. Planned Parenthood, it was called there. Before, it was called eugenics. Hitler also was doing the same thing. And he has said in a TED talk that we need to reduce the population. So what is now the connection? The connection is that they both are investing in a gene-driven technology, also called extinction technology. And what happens, if you look at the little diagram here, if you take a mosquito, you change the DNA of the mosquito. And so, for example, the mosquito now loses a specific something that they can do. After a while, this inherited gene, this altered gene will become the most dominant, and you can wipe out the whole species of mosquitoes or change them in whatever they are into something else, just like GMO. That's exactly the same thing that's happening here in different form. Now,